What is mama? Sorry, so that's actually an acronym, MMA. What is MMA? So MMA stands for Mixed Martial Arts. And mixed martial arts is a full contact sport that incorporates various striking, grappling, and ground fighting techniques. So to help you understand this, why don't we dissect those words a little bit more? Mixed martial arts. Let's first focus on what is a martial arts. So generally speaking, martial arts is a style or form of combat. And when you look at combat, generally you're trying to do one or two things. Attack, which is how to impose power or damage onto your opponent. Or two, how to defend. And defending is how to minimize the amount of danger or mitigate the amount of damage you might take. And defending is just as important as attacking because, closing your eyes and hoping the monsters go away, that works when you're 3 years old, but not so much when you're 30 and getting carjacked. When it comes to martial arts, it's helpful to think about it like cuisines. So you know how every country or culture has its own style of cooking or its own flavor. For example, if you go to Italy, you'll see pasta. If you go to Vietnam, you'll see a nice warm bowl of pho. You go to America, you'll see something like a donut cut in half and fried chicken shoved in the middle. That's the real thing. Don't act like you wouldn't eat that. When it comes to martial arts, you can go to China and you'll see their form of martial arts, which is Kung Fu. Or you go to Thailand and they have Muay Thai, which is a form of kickboxing. Or you go to Brazil and you'll see Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a ground fighting technique. Now the thing about these martial arts is, if you look at boxing, for example, that's mainly punching and you're not allowed to kick. But if you go to Taekwondo, that's mainly kicking. Or if you look at wrestling, there's no punching or kicking. Of course, unless you're watching WWE, then bring on the tables, ladders, and chairs, baby. But generally with these different martial arts, they have their own rule sets that you have to stay within. But when it comes to mixed martial arts, fighters in MMA could punch, they can kick, they can grapple. So they tend to mix a lot of different styles from these different martial arts to be the most effective fighter they can be. And that's where the mixed component of mixed martial arts comes in. They're grabbing the most effective techniques from these different martial arts and they're putting it into their tool set to be the most dangerous fighter they can be. So going back to our cuisine metaphor, MMA is kind of like the Sizzler, where you can go to the bar, you can grab your spaghetti from Italy if you want, your chicken fingers from the United States, your tacos from Mexico, and you can mix it all together, baby. And you know what? No one's gonna judge you because that's a price of admission. You're paying for people to not judge you when you go to the Sizzler. When it comes to MMA history, MMA's roots go far, far back to ancient times. You can go back 6,000 years ago to ancient China, and they had something called Shuai Jiao. Or you can go to 600 BC into ancient Greece, for example. They had something called Pankration. Now, these two forms of martial arts were very similar in the sense that they combined striking and wrestling techniques, so mixing martial arts. But when you talk to fanboys of MMA, they tend to talk about more modern MMA history. And it's a lot of cool things that happen in modern MMA history. For example, you go to the 1920s and you had the Gracie family. And the Gracie family was this cool family in Brazil that brought over Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And they did something called the Gracie Challenge, which is basically putting out this challenge to their whole town saying, hey, look, if you think you could kick our butts, come to our dojo and give it a shot. So they had wrestlers, they had kung fu guys, taekwondo guys, boxers coming to their gym and trying to fight them. And the cool thing about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is it teaches this idea that the smaller guy could have an advantage over the big guy, or just because it basically neglects a size advantage using technique. Another cool part of modern MMA history is you can go to the 1960s or 1970s where you have Bruce Lee. Now, a lot of people only know Bruce Lee as an action star, but he was a real martial artist. He even created his own martial arts called Jeet Kune Do. Now, Jeet Kune Do is known as a style without a style. Bruce Lee's whole thing was you have to be like water, right? You pour water into a cup, it forms into the shape of the cup. You pour water into a bowl, into a plate, it flows down a river. It always takes the form of whatever it sits in, and that's the idea that Bruce Lee had with Jeet Kune Do. Right? You want to form into your environment, mold into it, and flow with how things come. And you want to always exert the least amount of motion or effort necessary when you're attacking your opponent. The general idea or moral of the story here is that people have been trying to kick each other's butts since the dawn of time. Now you might be wondering why, if MMA's been around for so long, why hasn't you or your grandma heard of this term MMA? And the thing is, the actual term MMA wasn't really created until recently. It was 1993 where a TV critic wrote a review on the first ever UFC where he used the term MMA. So that's actually the origination of the term MMA. I'll stop here.